Welcome. My name is Julio Noriega. I am the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Leading Digital. The purpose of executive forums is to accelerate the evolution, the personal, professional, and entrepreneurial evolution of leaders, of business leaders. We believe that business leaders that are conscious, that are coherent, and that are connected are a positive force in the world. How do we do this? We do it by propelling the continuous growth, by generating insights through the collective intelligence, and we aim to together take better decisions. We believe that together we are wiser. And to introduce this expert insight, I would like to highlight that the objective is to convert knowledge into actionable intelligence, and that the objective is to contribute for you to be better prepared to lead your organizations successfully. This expert insight begins by recognizing that the rules of the game have changed, and that we ought to move towards holistic and integral transformation processes as opposed to just single initiatives. So as leaders, we ought to lead this transformation. We must recognize that disruption is the new norm, that we must identify opportunities in this context, and that to win and to lose actually happens way faster, and that we may even actually challenge that the way we are working is not working, and that transformation is not an if, but a how. And the reason why this expert insight is relevant is because statistics show that 70% of the leaders are conscious of this importance, the importance of accelerating transformation, but at least the great majority recognize that they are having a difficult time understanding or identifying where to innovate and how to orchestrate this transformation. To this end, it is a true pleasure to present Claudia Muñoz Nájar and Carlos Calderón. Claudia is the managing director of executive education for UTEC, a leading university in engineering, technology, and innovation. And Carlos is not only co-founder of Leading Digital, but certainly one of the top thought leaders and leading practitioners in big data in Latin America. With this in mind, Claudia and Carlos, I leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Julio. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Julio, for the introduction. And before we get into Leading Digital, I just wanted to give a brief overview of who UTEC is. The photo that you see is the campus that we have in Lima, Peru. We're the MIT of Latin America, and we're a very young university with only 9 years in the market, which is we're like a baby in the university world. We're a non-for-profit backed up by all the major economic groups in Peru, which and the founders had the dream to really transform education in Latin America. Our pillars are engineering, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And just to give you some idea of the numbers that we currently manage, we have 2,500 undergrad students currently enrolled in undergrad. Over the years since executive education was funded, which was not in 2012, we're only 6 years old. We have trained more than 13,000 professionals. We've done more than 200 custom programs with around 95 companies over the years, and we maintain a 90% overall satisfaction average, which is great for the industry. So with that, and with this brief overview, I pass it to Carlos, who will tell you a little bit more about Leading Digital.
Thank you, Claudia and Julio. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to share this moment. And I want to take a minute to share with you our purpose. As you can see, we are looking to accelerate the adoption of new ways of value creation. We defined it in 2017, and with the arrival of COVID, we tested and we convinced that we are going in the correct way. Fortunately, during this period, we found with the IMD is the #1 business school in leadership around the world. And their efforts to study and offer a way to confront our new imperatives related to the digital disruption. And they have a center of global Center for Digital Business Transformation in Switzerland. And they did an extraordinary job related to this, the study of this phenomenon, economic phenomenon. And we now can bring to Latin America and US these findings. And obviously, during this webinar, we can share with you.
Terrific.
Excellent. Ahead, so how do we start this process? So I think definitely COVID has give us a slap on the face and wake us all up. But basically, the way that we use to represent the storm of digital disruption is this vortex, is the digital vortex that you see. And as you can see, not all this is first of all, it's a dynamic graph that changes as we speak, every year, all the time. And you could be situated in the eye of the storm, which is the red part of the vortex. But maybe 2 years ago, you were in the green part. So this is the way that we choose to represent the storm. And as I said, for example, hospitality and tourism, which is now on the yellow part of the storm of digital disruption, 2 years ago wasn't even in the picture. So the idea is that and we are all the sectors are going to the center of the storm in one way or another. So the urgency that you take this initiative of digital transformation, or more than initiative, will be represented in the colors of this digital vortex. So what we want to do now is do a live survey of where do you map your organization in the vortex? Do you map it in the red area, yellow area, or outside of the vortex in the green area? So if you can now launch the survey, please.
Please show it, the poll.
Yes. So the question is, what is your company's position inside the vortex? Highly impacted, which will be the area closer to the eye of the vortex, which is the red area, moderately impacted, yellow, and barely impacted, green. Where do you see your organization?
In between, Claudia, I want to contribute to say that the important message of you mentioned is different for each one. Obviously, no? There are sectors are most affected, and there are another sectors or industries with less affectation, no? But the important that is all goes to the same part of the center in the vortex.
Yeah, that's a great point, Carlos. You know, every sector is gonna end up in the eye. So everybody's moving towards the eye of the storm. It's just a question of time. And the sooner that you react, the better. No, the more time you're gonna have to. So we got the results, and we have that 50% of the attendees or of the companies are moderately impacted. Almost 40% highly impacted, and the lucky ones, 10 to 12% barely impacted. But I think what it's very important here is, you know that you are in the storm, like the storm is happening. So how fast and how soon you can do things will help you maybe not get to the eye of the storm, because you're going to be probably in another industry if you react with the adequate time.
It's curious.
So
here perhaps it's worthwhile to remind the listeners, the members of executive forums and the prospects, that technologies, emerging technologies and exponential technologies are really pushing towards the center. All industries. Without a doubt, we're living in a more computational environment, a lot more processing and analysis capabilities. The combination of cloud, IoT, AI, robotics, virtual reality, and so on are really drawing towards the center. And if we can add to that, perhaps to take notice that disruption is coming from different sources, from the giant techs, from new entrant startup players, from other industries, and so on. So the point here is, even if you are only moderately or barely impacted, rest assured that you need to transform soon to stay ahead of the game. And speaking of staying ahead of the game, if we go to the next slide, we can see that we're looking at an S-curve. And this S-curve shows the early stages at the bottom left, and then it goes up while the business is growing, but at some times, the business is mature. And it is through the growth business stage that you need to start your next early business model. so that by the time your business matures, you already have a new business model, a new value proposition going forward. So now we see two S-curves here. The idea is that these are continuous S-curves, so that at no point in time, your company is at a point where you are a mature business in decline. Because once you have reached that point, it's a very difficult point from which to return back to growth business. So the idea would be here is to map yourself. Where are you in the S-curve? Are you an early business? Are you a growth business? Are you a mature business? Aha. So really interesting. It's great to see that there are no businesses in decline. Awesome. And great to see that there are 18% of the businesses already transforming. But we see that the great majority is a mature business. So here, the word of wisdom, if you will, is to really pay attention to what you can do to stay ahead of the curve. So what follows in this expert insight, hopefully, will give you good guidance as to how to move forward in this transformation process.
Thank you, Julio. I share now one of my favorite pictures to explain the phenomenon of disruption, digital disruption. As you can see in the vertical line, the speed of transformation, and in the other line is the time. And you know what happened when the company is trying to innovative or to transform. No? The speed of technology transformation is faster than organizations. The consequence is a gap that offer at the same time threats and opportunities. And just as you could be imagined, always somebody take this vacancy. But I stop here because we take advantage of these chances during this webinar. You can see in the next sheets our proposal to take this vacancy.
Excellent, Carlos. So what can we do about it? So now we will show you the digital business transformation journey, which is basically the methodology that we will go through in this expert insight to tell you how to approach the transformation. We saw a little bit of why to transform, and we talk about how COVID has put the spotlight on the transformation. So now I think there is no need to convince anybody of transforming. And in the following to this, the why, we will see what to transform. And then the most important part of the expert insight is on the how to transform, which is where most companies fail. I think the data shows, it's not that I think, the data shows that most companies have the reason why to transform and what to transform, but where they fail the most is in execution. So sorry about my the noise. But so this is the summary of the digital transformation journey, and it's a great picture to show you exactly how we're gonna go through this expert insight. So I will give the pass now to Carlos. We talk about the new ways of value creation.
Very important. Obviously, this is a resume of our reality, no? This is an effort to show in short way what is our reality now, no? Related with the new ways of value creation. IMD and Global Center for Digital Business Transformation present these three ways to value creation, no? The first one is cost value. The second one is experience value, and third is the platform value. Probably you know some of this, but we try to explain each one. For example, when you think in ways to value creation related to the cost value, you can see in business model as free or ultra low cost, for example, or consumption-based pricing, or others, as you can see in the picture. But in fact, you observe, for example, when Uber emerged at the beginning, no, emerged in the transportation, market transportation, or taxi transportation, taxi services, no? For example, you observe the offer or the relation, the price with the quality of the service expressed typically cost value ways of value creation, no? Disrupt the traditional taxi service market, disrupt, obviously, no? And another way of value creation is the experience value, no? In that case, there are another business models that you know probably as customer empowerment, for example, or customization, or automation, instant gratification, or reduce friction, no? This is some of kind of business models related to the experience value, no? At the end, we show the platform value as another way to value creation. Probably you feel that you know this way of value creation because we use many of them. But the important is the power to put in one place the providers and buyers at the same time, no? For example, digital marketplaces, no? As Amazon, for example, or crowdsourcing, or communities, or ecosystem, or data orchestrators, no? The important is that if you try to disrupt some market, you need to build one of these new ways of value creation. Please go to the next. Because
to that end, Carlos, perhaps
yes,
it's worthwhile mentioning that it would be extremely powerful, and that fosters market disruption when all three are actually combined.
Yes,
and
the next picture, please move to the next, to show the value vampires. Yeah, the companies has the three at the same time, the three new ways of value creation. No, you know probably Uber or Amazon. No, typically they can called value vampires. No, companies that disrupted the markets and shrinks the profits of industry, no? Okay, this is, it's very important to strategy to disrupt the markets, no? As you can see the next pictures. Please move the last concept, a very important concept, to identify value vacancies, no? For example, because this is opportunity or threat are present when the companies are trying to transformation. At the same time, you can see the speed of the transformation of the technology. In between, you have a gap, okay? In the middle of the gap are value vacancies, many value vacancies. The important is if you can see one of them. Okay, next to the next.
Thank you, Carlos.
What question here? Should we do a poll about how our listeners or our audience is in terms of their value proposition? Would they be more likely to be a cost value, an experience value, or a platform value proposition?
Perfect.
Mexico.
Terrific. It's not moving anymore. So most of our audience is an experience value proposition. It'd be interesting to know how many of you are actually combining them. I would invite you to think about it, to see how is it that you can actually combine all three. Granted, you may have more of one than the other, but I invite you to think in ways in which you could combine all three. That's where the real disruption is.
Yes. And that is exactly the concept of value vampire, no? When you combine the combinatorial power gives you the status of value vampire. So now that you know how you create value, how do you respond to disruptors is also a good way to review, to think about it and review how you do it. So we have if you can move it so we can see the 4 different strategy responses. In the left side, we have 2 defensive strategies, which basically what they focus is on protecting the core business. We have the retreat and the harvest. And then in the offensive and right side of the slide, we see the 2 strategies, which are disrupt and occupy, which actually what they do is they try to find a value vacancy that you can disrupt and then occupy. And they are looking to basically improve the business performance and adopt a new business model. So based on where you are at and what different ways of creating value do you have, you can take that and also think about how do you respond to the disruptors that are coming to take your margin. So I'm not gonna go in any detail more, but I just want you to know that there are 2 in the defensive area and 2 in the offensive. And you can do all 4 at a time, which is more complicated to explain, but we can go deeper if the time gives us and you have a question, we can definitely explain that. So now, Julio, you are next.
Sure. To me, this is one of the most relevant slides in the presentation because it shows that you can no longer only operate as if you are trying to be an efficient business unit. Yes, you want to be efficient as a manager, but you also want to be a leader. And therefore, you need both. You need to run and you need to change. You need to run and you need to change. In order to do that, we want to make sure that we are managing the horizons, that we are managing the short, the mid, and the long-term vision of the company. So most likely in the short and midterm, we want to digitize the core. We want to increase our rate of innovation of our current value proposition. And we are able to most likely develop this in-house. However, if we want to look into the midterm and the long term, we want to go into more innovative business models. Here, you want to be more disruptive. You want to combine a value proposition that includes all three elements of cost, experience, and platform. And here, you may actually want to include the concept of open innovation. You may actually realize that you do not have all of the resources and all of the talent and the ability to focus on disruptive innovation. So you may want to partner with a venture builder, or you may want to partner with an accelerator, someone that you can team up with that has the knowledge and the focus to help you innovate in the mid and long term. The idea here is that you want to make sure that on the one hand, you optimize your core and you develop a new business model proposition for the mid to long term, assuming that you have the time. If you don't have the time and you are being threatened as we speak, then yes, you need to move into this innovative business model much faster. Claudia?
So that's a pretty important concept, the ambidextral organization and the ambidextral leadership, and how do you digitize, run and change the business. But how can we do it? So now we go into execution. So we saw the why, we saw the what, and now we're going to see the how. So the first very important concept that we want to show you is business agility. And what does business agility mean to us? It has three components, which are very simple, but very hard to execute. The first one is hyper awareness, and it's really the ability to read the early signs. No? We saw the digital vortex on where you locate in the storm of digital disruption. So that's part of it, realizing where you are, but also being able to always read the early signs and have this growth mindset as an organization to adapt, no? And to be always hyper aware. The second element of business agility is informed decision making. And it's really our ability to make the best decision with the data that we have. No, sometimes, you know, sometimes it's good to use intuition, but mainly we need to take decisions based on data. And the third and last is fast execution, which is the hardest one to build. And that's where we say early that most companies fail is in executing. No, it's really carrying out the plans that you have for transformation. And in order to do that, now Julio is going to show you the last concept that we want to show you. How you execute is key to know about the orchestra. So Julio.
Before we move from business agility, I'd like to highlight that business agility, as you just shared, is not one thing. It's not business agility. It is three things, not one. It is the combination of hyper-awareness, which means that you need to carve out time to visualize the future, to identify threats and opportunities, to understand new technologies, to understand new business models. That's one, that's hyper-awareness. And then based on that, you can build a mindset which will allow you to go from a build to last type of company, where you're anchored into the past, into a build to evolve company, where it allows for a vision. But of course, it requires conviction and it requires leadership, as we will see later on. And it will require, of course, access to both thought leaders and leading practitioners. So business agility is not one thing, but three things. Perhaps that's a concept to, as a key takeaway in this presentation. In that regards, by the way, we need to battle with our own bias and our own preconceived notions, if you will. We sometimes underestimate the velocity of change. Sometimes we underestimate the impact of competitiveness, or we may not fully understand the power of platforms, or we don't really value how barriers are being erased, and now the fact that your competitors are coming from different industries, and so on and so forth. So in order to have this business agility, we really need to bias. We need to battle against our own biases. But to Claudia's point, okay, so how do we go about it? And perhaps it's worth mentioning that the transformation does have a beginning, but it doesn't have an end. It's a continuous journey, and it's not about one thing, but it's about a series of instruments that we play simultaneously to create a symphony here, and this is a symphony that is written as we play. There's a route, but there is not a specific path to follow. And modifying, changing, transforming just one thing is certainly not enough. So we must face this challenge in a holistic way. And we must understand that it's not the exclusive responsibility of one area. Sometimes we make that mistake by creating an innovation lab within the company. But just like culture in an organization does not depend on human resources, innovation does not depend from this lab alone. Basically, in order for this transformation to take place, we need, above all, governance. And in order to have alignment at the governance level, we must share a common purpose and a common vision. So it requires leadership, adaptive leadership, and collaboration, and to share a common vision and a common purpose. From a governance standpoint of view, we need to include in our boards independent experts. We need diverse perspectives. We need to move from just reviewing the financials to having a vision and a strategy. And board members need to share the responsibility as opposed to just ask for results. We need to, at the board level, we need to go from reviewing the past to contributing towards the future, and from being, from actually thinking that we have all the answers to asking the right questions. So purpose, vision, and strategy is what should mobilize the company at the governance level. But then we need to focus as well on the individual, on the leadership, the one who drives transformation. There must be someone in the organization who really, really gets the backing from the board and leads the transformation. He must be the ambassador and the promoter of this transformation. He's a symbol of transformation. By the way, in order to do this, there must be humility in order to learn. There must be a bold vision. There must be capacity to adapt and commitment. And when I mean commitment, I mean commitment at every level. It is absolutely fundamental. And in order to have the right structure, you want to make sure that you manage the company both from running the core to innovation in the more disruptive ways that we discussed. But we also want to make sure that the teams that you build are empowered. They are multidisciplinary. They become autonomous cells that can be articulated. However, a lot of effort into clear functions, responsibilities, and priorities must be included in this process. No competing agendas, a lot of agility. The planning must be in short term. And the teams must be built as if they fully understood that they are a part of something bigger. That takes us to culture. From an organization standpoint of view, we need to go from hierarchical to collaboration, from decisions by ranking to decisions by knowledge, from detailed instructions to understanding context, so we can allow action to take place, so we can allow proactivity to take place, from objectives by one department to company-wide objectives, from rigid expectations to hypotheses, from linear planning to feedback loop, from perfect for tomorrow to good enough for today, and so on and so forth. So there needs to be a real change in culture in the organization. In terms of talent, they need to be connected to the purpose, to the values, to the moonshot of the company, intrinsically motivated, energized, proactive, empowered. We need to build light or lean structures, a lot of upskilling and reskilling. And we need to ask ourselves, do they want it? Do they get it? Do they have the capabilities? So it's absolutely key to build enablers, to build capabilities. We're moving now to the operations side of it. It is absolutely fundamental to build the technological capabilities to make this happen. And then moving into engagement, we require a stakeholder's value as opposed to just a shareholder's value. So we need to look at the entire value chain and a lot of effort in customer centricity. We need to understand that customer journey. What does he see, or what does he or she listen to? What is his or her perception? What does he or she feel? What does he or she says and does? It is absolutely fundamental to have empathy in this design process. By the way, the design process does start with listening, with empathy, and then it moves on to to designing, to prototypes, to minimum viable products, to testing, and then to pivoting. So it's really relevant to stay on top of the entire stakeholders value chain. And then onto the marketplace. Basically, if we have done the right offering and we are using the right channels and we have designed correctly, it should basically guarantee to find the right market product fit. So what I'm trying to convey here is how all of it must be integrated in order to be successful. The big message here is not about one single digital initiative, but a true corporate transformation.
Excellent. So I think we reviewed lots of concepts, and I just wanted to take a minute to review what is the digital business transformation journey that we have shown you, and the different pieces. So the why, where you locate yourself in the digital vortex, the what to transform, what ways are you creating value, how do you respond to digital disruption and the disruptors, how do you generate business agility, and the three major components: hyper awareness, informed decision making, and fast execution. And lastly, what Julio just reviewed is how do you execute using the digital orchestra. So with that, I want to give the pass to Carlos. He will talk about the different stages that you can find yourself in the digital transformation journey.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Claudia and Julio. We reviewed the most important part of presentation. We are finishing, but we want to share with our participants our findings related to the last research that we did in Latin America about the journey of transformation. This is a roadmap, really, of the business transformation. And as Julio and Claudia mentioned, normally the companies start the transformation as individual or alone activities, dispersed activities, to obviously want they want to transform their companies, but it's a trials, no, as a trials. But then we continue the journey in another stage as intentional pledgers. In that moment, probably their companies, our companies, have a list of initiatives and budget, no, to finance these initiatives, but continued with participate the board or another part of the stakeholders in the company, no. Then in the stages more advanced, we can switch to a strategic things. In that moment, probably your company needs a public statement, no, with a plan, detailed plan, with a strategics to transform your company. Probably in that moment, you want to transform for the first time your business model, no? And then when you can transform the company, when your budget, for example, or your revenue or your EBITDA has a big part of came from the new business models, transform business models, you as a check, you can do the check. But we found the last stage, you know, this for the some companies, they come transformed in a new stage where the environment is very it's a continued disruption, no? Because you confront the new threats and new opportunities that push your company to continue the disruption to the markets. No, at the end, probably you never stop to transform. This is the last stage. So we present that as a journey. No, obviously many companies have different part of their company. Some areas in one stage and other areas in other stages, but it's not recommended. No, the recommendation, as Julio mentioned in the Orchestrate proposal, is that orchestrate, no, align all transformations in one plan, intentional plan to transform your companies. Okay, we have some questions.
Maestro, sale ahí.
So just to finalize and open for questions, I'm just gonna rush into the last slide. We just wanted to take a minute to talk about the different offerings and the value proposition of Lean Digital. As Carlos said at the beginning, our purpose is to accelerate the adoption of new ways to create value. So in that sense, our value proposition focuses on generating hyper-awareness to enable the mindset change needed to boost the adoption of these new business models and to build the capabilities to improve performance and optimize value. We have 2 offerings around mindset, which are in yellow, and 4 offerings around building capabilities that range from custom corporate alignment and learning programs to learning trips and open innovation projects with our internal accelerator UTEC ventures. So that's to summarize all of our offerings. And now I think if we have time for 1 or 2 questions will be great. So do we open for questions?
Yes, in the chat, there are some questions.
Okay, so the first question in the chat is, I agree that many companies fail on the fast execution segment. Is this due to resources, competency, fear, risk, or something else? You know, I think it's all of the above. But I will say that the biggest problem around the data that we have is the lack of alignment and vision on why to transform. So, and the lack of commitment of the top senior level and board. No, if there is no alignment in that area, it's very hard to execute. And second, I will say, is that usually the run wins the change, which means that if you are measured by the short-term results, financial results, usually your attention is going to be towards that. So you need to be very careful on what incentives do you put in order to allow the change to happen, because otherwise you're going to always live in the run, which is the business as usual. Anything that you, Carlos or Julio, want to add?
Oh, yes. At the same time, I recommend take a point attention in the culture, because when you want to try a build culture with two part of the company, run and change, is very, very difficult. Normally, this part of the transformation give many problems that you need to manage in different ways. No?
And perhaps the last concept that I would add is that, yes, you need to you need to focus on what are the core technologies to your industry and to your company, but watch out for the buzzwords. Watch out for the technology as opposed to really paying attention to why you're doing it. Where are you really creating value? The technology should be an enabler. A digital transformation is not about a technology transformation. It's about how to use the technology to create value. So that's what I would put a lot of emphasis. So to summarize what Claudia said, watch out for getting stuck in the run. Watch out for the incentives. As Carlos mentioned, really put emphasis on culture and watch out for those buzzwords that don't mean anything unless we really know why is it that we are doing it, and we really know how to really adopt it in our companies.
Excellent. Excellent. Julio, I think it's 12:58. You are the host, so do you think?
Thanks. So, of course, we want to thank each and one of you who accompany us in this expert insight. We hope that it was worthwhile for you and that we provided some light into this holistic approach to company transformation. We would be glad to stay in touch with you in the future. Please do write to myself, and I will be happy to provide Claudia's and Carlos' information at both Leading Digital and UTEC. So thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure, and I hope that it was worthwhile for each and one of you. Stay safe
Thank you, everybody.
and stay strong.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.